This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders who are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and today Robert Armstrong and Sanford Fisch join the show to share the thinking behind the enterprise law firm model, their new book for attorneys who want stronger businesses, more freedom, and a real legacy. Together, they've mentored hundreds of lawyers through the American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys, helping them shift from traditional practice habits to a model built on growth, recurring revenue, and long-term value. Their book and their academy give attorneys a path to a firm that supports their life instead of draining it. Robert, welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you. We're real happy to be here.
I'm happy as well. And Sandy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. So, Robert, I want to start with you because let's talk about blind spots. What are the most common blind spots you see in firms today during your illustrious 4-decade career?
Systems, lack of systems. So we talk to lawyers all over the country and have for many decades now. And the one thing we notice is people are just winging it. They have no written systems on how to run their practice. So I'd say that's the biggest blind spot. And once they see that the difference that having manageable systems have in the law firm, it makes all the difference in the world.
And Sandy, on your end, you started on the tax side at Coopers & Lybrand, I believe. How did that foundation shape the rest of your career?
Well, one of the biggest aspects of working for a big company like Coopers & Lybrand, which back then they were part of what was called the Big Eight accounting firms, which is, I think now it's down to the final four, is you get to see that there's a sort of a concept of how they operate, but also you think you work for a big company or a big law firm and that there's some kind of security in that, when really it's just an illusion of security, because at any moment they can have a client leave them and lose a massive amount of work. They can have a management shakeup and all of a sudden people are being laid off. What was interesting about my experience is I came out of Georgetown with a tax degree, went to work in the San Diego office of Coopers & Lybrand. And when I got there in, I think it was July of back in 82, they immediately had lost one of their biggest clients, over 10,000 hours of work. So we started the summer with all of a sudden all this free time. So it really made me realize that, wow, a big company, it's just an illusion. There's no security there. And the real security is in really gaining your own skills and being the master of your own destiny.
And on the subject of what Robert mentioned about systems, did you catch that on early with in your tax days and in law in terms of how important it's, obviously having those big whales that everyone always talks about, but like the system in place to recover if you lose said whales?
There are lots of systems in an organization that's a big company like that, an international company. But what really drove systems home was really a book that Robert and I read back in, I think it was about 1986 or 1987, by Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. And in that book, it drove home the idea of how important systems are to every business. And that's really put us on a trail of, okay, now we know exactly what we want to do.
Nice. And Robert, the E-Myth attorney, you obviously a big impact you've had with it, and being involved and knowing what's going on with it. But my question to you is, if everyone knows what the problems are, why does people still resist it? Like during the course of your career, like it's been laid out in the E-Myth attorney, so everyone knows what the problems are. So why do these things occur?
It takes some work. If you're working in a system, working in a business that has really no written systems, and you decide that you're going to have systems, it takes a lot of work in order to examine every part of your practice and all of the flow of business and create systems, write them down, create operating manuals on how to do it. And that's just too much work for a lot of people.
There's one thing to say, oh, I need a system, but then there's a whole nother skill set of developing a system. And so most people don't have the skill set of developing that system itself. And then, of course, you reach a point where you say, well, okay, well, do I want to do it myself, or has someone else done it and I can work with them and follow a system that's already proven, that's already shown to be successful?
All right, so gentlemen, when I talk to physicians, I have this running joke with them that they go through all this schooling for decades, right? Maybe 10, 12 years of going to school. But then once they graduate and they become doctors, nowhere during that journey do they talk about how to run an office or run a spreadsheet or hire people and all that jazz. So let me ask you this, because I haven't had a chance to ask an attorney this. The systems you're talking about and even the business planning of being an attorney, does any of that come up along your educational journey? I'll start with you, Robert.
No, it doesn't. And that's one of the failures of particularly law school. I don't know what it's like now, but when I graduated in 1976, we had zero practical experience on how to run a law practice. So it's missing everywhere in the education. And that's why people are stumbling and fumbling when they decide to go out on their own and they decide to create a practice. They have nothing really to fall back on. They have no knowledge about what it means to actually run a business, and that's where the academy comes in, because we give them all of those systems.
And Sandy, that's still pretty the running story that most attorneys nowadays still don't have the system in place or the education piece when they walk out of law school.
Yeah, I think that's still the case. And the whole idea of approaching the law practice as a business, particularly for sole practitioners and smaller law firms, they never really thought about that, nor did they have the education to understand how to run the business. That was one of the reasons that Robert and I, when we approached the whole legal field, we came at it from the standpoint of, here's how to run a law firm. And we had a very distinct way of doing that. We had systems for each component of it. We made it crystal clear so that you had to have systems for lead generation. You had to have systems for lead conversion. You had to have systems for doing the work, fulfilling on what you promised. You had to have systems to manage the operation. And then you had to have systems in order to keep track of the finances. Those were the 5 basics that we started with. And Robert and I can remember back to the first time we talked to a group of attorneys, and we talked to them in those terms. When we were done, they looked at us and they literally said, "We've never heard anything like this before."
Wow.
We didn't even touch on the technical, legal technicalities and all the education that you get in law school. We just approached it all from how to run your law firm as a business. And not only were they astounded at what they heard, we were somewhat astounded at the response that we got the first time that we approached the legal community in that way.
Robert, tell me about those initial meetings, because you've seen it all. And the fact that you're laying this information down and they're looking at you like you're speaking another language. Tell me about those early days.
Well, in the first boot camp that we did way back in 1993, we had a room full of practicing attorneys. And these weren't newbies. These were people who've been practicing for years, sometimes decades. And they were just astounded that there was this kind of information that was available to them to how to systematize a practice. And so then after the meeting was over, people came up to us and said, how do we get involved in this? How do we find out where these systems are and how to use them? Is there any coaching available for this? And that's what the Academy was all about. We give them what we call 11 essential systems on how to run a practice. And then we coach them on it, give them the systems, coach them on it, and see what difference it makes in their practice.
Interesting. And so, I mean, obviously attorneys are all about the facts, data, precedent. When you're presenting the Academy model to attorneys, what are the receipts you show, for lack of a better word, Sandy, that you show that, hey, this actually works?
This brings back so many memories for Robert and me. So just think back to 1993. First of all, there was no internet back in 1993. Okay. So when we were presenting this back then, can you imagine a room full of attorneys how much skepticism there was in that room of everything that we were saying. And so what we had to do in the beginning was not only present the material, not only show them we have had this kind of success, which we did. We gave them a money back guarantee. If they didn't think it worked, if it didn't work for them, we'll give you your money back. So that's way back then. If you fast forward to now, of course, now we've got so many who have been part of the academy and the success is extraordinary. We don't have to do anything other than go to our member list, go ahead and call any member you'd like to and ask them any question. You will be shocked at how forthcoming they are about not just the academy, but their own success. So it's been obviously a huge transition from the early days to where we are today. And now we don't have to do anything other than say, just go to our member list. And it's really quite amazing how generous all our members are with providing information. They're happy to do it. And there's one fundamental reason why, because one day they were in the shoes of the person who's calling them. And they remember that. And that's why they just want to help that person. So it's kind of amazing for us to watch what has happened and then see where it is today.
Robert, it's funny. I'm getting vibes of, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Indiana football coach, Kurt Signetti. They asked him,
Yeah.
why would players want to come to your school? Why would they play for you? He goes, I win. Google me. That's almost like I get, Robert, the idea of like how your model works is like, hey, just call some guys. They'll tell you that this works.
Exactly. Yep.
That's so cool. All right. So the name of the book is The Enterprise Law Firm Model. So Robert, explain to me the model and why it was important to package it all into here in this book.
Well, when we first started, we just based it all on creating systems and delivering them to our members. And the system had basically two meetings that people came in to our members, and they had a personal consultation about their estate planning needs. And then we scheduled a final signing meeting so that they could come and sign all their documents. And in between those two meetings, the law firm was busy creating the estate plans. And that worked just fine. But there was this whole sense of get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out. And at some point we thought, we're in the relationship business. We want to establish kind of the deepest level of relationships with our clients. And you cannot do that with one meeting with the attorney. There's no way that you're going to be able to gather all that information. Now, the system worked just fine. The businesses were profitable. Clients were happy. However, we also coupled that idea of being in the relationship business and not really having the time to do the relationships the way they should be done. And so we thought about it, and we also thought about this other fact that at the end of every month, every attorney starts over again. So you hustle the months before, you do the work for that month, and then at the end of that month, all back on the treadmill again, trying to get clients and doing all of that. And there was this idea of how can we create a recurring revenue that comes in every single month or every quarter or every year in the estate planning world. And we found that we could do that by offering other services that were related to estate planning, like wealth management, insurance, real estate, accounting, whatever kind of other systems and businesses you want. And when you combine the two of those, the lack of the personal deep relationship and the fact that people are having to start over every month, we got the idea that if we could put them both together and have our members be complete estate planners, not just doing the legal documents, but also investigating how they hold title to their assets and then managing those assets as well. And it created a whole new vision of what it means to be an estate planning attorney. And the relationships that developed from changing the system was really remarkable.
That's awesome. And Sandy, I'm getting the vibes of the insurance commercials, bundle your home and auto. Like it seems like Sandy, you've created almost like a one-stop shop for attorneys.
Well, You hit the nail on the head. One of the fundamental aspects of this is that the clients coming in had other needs. And it was clear to us by working with them on their legal needs that there were other needs that it was just waiting there to help them. And so, everything that Robert said, combined with the fact that this fundamental need of clients wanting help with investments, help with insurance, just those two to start, that it was clear we could provide that help. There's another factor that comes into play. Everybody likes the one-stop shop. Everybody likes the relief of responsibility of finding another trusted advisor. And once you have found a trusted advisor, and you can think about this for yourself, when you have found a go-to person, don't you want to just keep going back to them because you trust them? They've done what they said they would do. They've done it at a high level of competence, which then gives you high level of confidence. And now anything else that they recommend, you want to work with them because it saves you time, energy, and it saves you all the due diligence. So all of this was sitting right there, and we realized, okay, with the proper expertise and the proper training, we could provide a number of different things that everybody wants. So
let me add on to that too, Sandy, that in the old days, what we used to do when clients would come in and they said, "Hey, do you know anybody that can help me with my investments or with my insurance or other needs?" And of course, we didn't have any ability to help them with that other than giving them a referral to somebody. So you put 3 business cards on the table and say you can call these 3 people and see if they can help you. Well, that was very little help to the client sitting in front of them. And then what we found out was the estate planning investment portion that these financial advisors were giving were just disastrous. We saw that we could protect the estate plan and avoiding probate, avoiding conservatorship, reducing taxes with our planning, but we couldn't do anything on the investment side. And so we may protect 10% of their net worth, where the financial advisor is handling something that represents 80 or 90% of their net worth. And so giving them the wrong referral was disastrous for clients. So we thought we can do this better. And of course, the entree into doing it better meant that we had to get licensed. We had to have securities licenses, which is no easy feat. But once we did that, we were now in the business. We were already fiduciaries. We had to do what's in the best interest of the clients. So now we just bundled together, using your term, the estate planning, the wealth management, the insurance, and we became the one-stop shop for them and the one call that people would have whenever they had issues.
Nice. And Sandy, may I devil's advocate here? Because what if there's the attorney out there who maybe see your book, hear what you guys do, maybe watch this podcast, and they'd be like, I just want to be a lawyer, man. Like, I don't mind the old school referral system. I got some stack of cards about guys I know that can handle financials. What do you say to that person, Sandy? Is that dinosaur one of those that will eventually go extinct because they don't offer all of these a la carte kind of items? Tell me about that sort of like the other side of the lawyer just being like, I want to do law, man.
Well, sort of 2 things come to mind when you say that. One is, doesn't sound like the right fit for what we're doing. Okay. But even though that may in fact be true, we would spend some time with them to talk about what their business looks like. Also, what do they see the future of the legal profession? And will just engaging in doing the documents, will that be a sustainable business going forward? They may say, yes, that's all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. And that's okay. But we would give them some different perspective on what we've seen over the decades and what we see in the future and why we think this is the best model, not just for them and their family and their life, which we know it is life-changing. Also, it's actually better for their clients. Now, some may hear that and then want to investigate further. Others might say, not for us, and that's okay. We part friends.
And in addition to that, we would talk to them about what the future holds from our point of view. And that is artificial intelligence is barreling down the track. And one of the industries that's going to be substantially impacted are going to be attorneys. Practicing law is like understanding rules. So it's a rule-based system. Artificial intelligence is made for rule-based systems. You give me the rules in an artificial intelligence scenario, and I'll create everything that you need. They've done studies too that say that clients who meet with advisors who have more of their business than just one aspect are much tighter with the professional. They stay with them longer. So not only do you have recurring revenue, this is a hedge against artificial intelligence coming and wiping out your business. So it's not just a matter of, I'll just sit back and do the legal work and I'll be fine. Well, watch out. Something's coming for you.
Awesome. If I might sidebar, Sandy, I'm sure both of you gentlemen are aware of the story a couple of years ago of the ChatGPT lawyer, the guy who wrote the brief, and ChatGPT hallucinated and created like some sort of precedent, and the lawyer got a bit of a trouble. I know this is not exactly the subject matter, but Robert opened up this can of worms, so I'm just curious. Like, tell me about how AI works in the world of law right now.
It's interesting you should bring that up. There was just an article in the local paper about a law firm that did get sanctioned because in their documents they made reference to some cases and there were no such cases, more hallucinations. And so anyone who's really paying attention understands there's tremendous value in the artificial intelligence, and you have to use it in the right way. And if it's doing any kind of legal research, you better make sure you check every source that is cited so you don't wind up being not only embarrassed, but also sanctioned by a court. So in a lot of processes, it can help and it can cut down on time. I just attended really an artificial intelligence summit where some of the big tech companies were talking about here's how we're using the artificial intelligence. And there's a segment for it. And they feel that they're going to be able to, as they like to say, redesign how the practice of law actually occurs. However, it goes back to something Robert said earlier. The thing AI can't replace is the relationship. That's what it can't replace. Now, I know we all know stories about people talking to AI and they feel like they're with a therapist and all the rest of it. However, there's something about being face to face with a human being who understands you and your family that's not going to go away.
Anything else to add, Robert, about AI? Are you doodling with ChatGPT or Claude in your daily work?
Yeah, I do. ChatGPT, and I'm watching all of the progress that other companies are making. And just recently, Google has gone to the top with their Gemini program. It's very fascinating. And even though artificial intelligence may not work perfectly right now, this is just the beginning of that industry. So what we're trying to do for our members is hedge against all of that. First of all, giving multiple kinds of services that the attorney can offer, and also get the recurring revenue that happens with wealth management or insurance or these other things. And we feel it's a great hedge against the threat of artificial intelligence. And as Sandy mentioned, what we really are all about is relationships. We want the attorney to have a deep relationship with the clients. And in the past, we talked about that 2-meeting system: come in, do a consultation, next meeting, come in and sign your documents. Well, now we've turned that on its head. And now we've got a 5-meeting system where the clients feel like they're really heard. Clients can ask questions. And this process that goes through not only the personal consultation, but reviewing the assets that clients have, and then reviewing the estate plan again. And then finally, getting to the signing portion. It is a complete change of the old get them in, get them out system.
And speaking of change, it's all about changing mindsets as well. I mean, even tying to my earlier point about physicians don't think like CEOs, and lawyers don't think like CEOs. They view themselves as technicians, not strategists. So, Sandy, how how do we help attorneys sort of embrace this CEO mindset when it comes to running their business?
I think it's interesting because you mentioned one of the buzzwords that was way back in 1986, 87 when Robert and I read the E-Myth. And what Michael Gerber did was he distinguished between running a business and the technician who knew how to do the work of a business. And he coined a phrase which many other have used. You're either working in the business or working on the business. And the working on the business is what the CEO does. And so one of the things that we spend a lot of time on at the Academy is working with members on their mindset, because the mindset is the biggest lever. It's the biggest thing. It's the biggest way to get leverage is you've got to change your mindset. And so we start with the fundamental idea of right now you're a technician. We need to talk to you about how to become someone who actually knows how to run a business, and we'll train you on that. And continuously working on the mindset. That never goes away because everybody backslides. They're go, 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 and then all of a sudden something happens. And we explain everything's not going to be a smooth line from here, successful up to here. It's going to be up and down. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be obstacles. The key is to actually deal with those obstacles in a way where you actually look for the opportunity in there. Over the years, because we've been doing this a long time, we've seen obstacles in the economy, whether it's in the early 2000s, whether it was 2008. Of course, we were there through COVID. And so we know how to handle obstacles on a grand scale, and we know what it's like in the trenches. So we manage them and we help them with their mindset and get through those different things and challenges that are going to happen. We know that. So that's how we see it.
Cool. All right. So I hate to tie in healthcare one more time. This is the last time I promise I'm going to do it. And that's pricing. When it comes to healthcare, it's, as you gentlemen know, it's very opaque. You've heard the stories that if you get a medical procedure done at a hospital on the 3rd floor, it's going to cost more than it costs on the 4th floor. It's just there's this weird pricing. And when it comes to attorney, that's the pricing confidence. Let's talk about that a little bit, Robert, in terms of you tell me about value-based pricing that moves the needle. And let's get into the pricing side of attorneys.
Sure. What was lawyers, when they started out, they were doing hourly billing, keeping track of every 6 minutes so that they could bill the client. Well, when we first started the Academy, we said, no, we don't want that kind of hourly billing. We want to have a flat fee. And so the flat fee was a relief to clients because now they knew that this was the amount they were going to have to pay, and that was all they were going to have to pay. When you do an hourly billing, it's like a blank check to the law firm. How many hours are they going to put into this thing? So we always believed in the value billing on a flat fee basis. And also what we wanted our members to be is not the cheapest lawyers in town, maybe not the most expensive, because some of the huge Fortune 500 kind of law firms have astronomical fees, but we wanted our members to be in the upper echelon of fees. And then the challenge was to justify what those fees were. And so we created all of these portions of the package that we gave to clients. So they paid a flat fee. They knew they were getting value. And now with the enterprise model law firm, they are getting multiple visits with the law firm so that they can see what the value is of what they're paying. It's been a remarkable thing to see. A lot of our attorneys who have gone to this new method were surprised to find out that clients just loved it. They had no idea how clients would react to it. But when you first meet with the client, you lay out the roadmap of all of the meetings and you start scheduling them right then. And clients would look at each other and say, this is unusual. You mean I'm going to meet with you 3, 4, 5 times before my plan is done? And that really justifies the fee.
Wow. Sandy, it's almost like one of those ideas that's so obvious that no one's ever done it before that, like, once you see it, you're like, you do like a classic, duh, what, why haven't anyone tried doing this before?
You know, it's funny, Joe, you keep hitting on points that are things that we've faced and we have covered. And you just nailed another one that you hear this and you go, well, gee, this is kind of simple. Why didn't, no big deal. But that's the fallacy. Yeah, it's like, well, gee, this is kind of simple, but simple isn't always easy. And so we get back to the execution. We get back to, okay, well, I'll just charge more fees. It's not just charging a flat fee that's higher. It's understanding what's underneath that, which is the relationship and all the value that's delivered, and understanding, well, how do you deliver value? And it's making sure you have a team that understands how critical every interaction with every client is throughout the process, leading up to, like, there's so many interactions before they even get to the office. Certainly under our system, because we do marketing, there's a lot that happens before they wind up at the office. So yes, people might say, well, geez, no big deal. Okay, then if it's that simple, have at it. Be one of the, DIYers, do it yourself. Now, in this idea of when we talk about fees, we touched on the idea that, the legal profession was trading time for money, which has a ceiling because there's only so much time. So we knew that that doesn't work. Then the other problem with that is it incentivizes going slow. If I'm being paid hourly, and clients, I mean, they have said that to us. We know that's in their mind. And then, as Robert said, from the beginning, we always went with flat fees, and then we delivered value along the way, so nobody questions fees. And again, we have a whole system of how to work with clients from the very first interaction until they get to the office. And then when they get to the office and they sit down with the lawyer, how the lawyer operates in that meeting so that they're able to find out what the real problem is for the client and put the spotlight on the client and their problems rather than what most lawyers do: talk, teach, educate. Okay. We turn that upside down and we train attorneys on here's how to ask good questions and then do the other thing they don't teach in law school, and that is listen carefully. And so a lot to it, but you nailed it again, Joe.
Thanks. I appreciate it. All right, so that's the money coming in. Robert, how about the money that's left on the table? Tell me about the folks what kind of money are people leaving on the table if they don't follow a system, have a way of doing things, besides DIY, like Sandy said. What kind of money are people leaving on the table if they're not taking these steps?
Well, if they're not taking these steps, especially the step of going into the enterprise model, when we're talking about recurring revenue, we're talking about on a quarterly basis. You're going to get a percentage of the amount of money that you're managing, generally 1% of the amount. So that money has been left on the table, and it's going to some financial advisor down the street working for a brokerage firm or whatever. So there's big money, and this whole idea of having to start over at the end of every month is also plays here. But one of the things that you just asked Sandy about this, it seems so obvious and ideal for attorneys to be involved both in the wealth management, insurance, and the legal world, is I think it was a bureaucratic sort of schism that financial advisors are regulated by the SEC and other financial regulatory organizations, and the legal profession is regulated by the Bar Association. So people immediately saw that there was this separation, and nobody really said, well, we can fix that separation. Just get licensed with the SEC and you're now in business. So the idea of leaving money on the table, both with not having systems and not embracing the whole idea of the enterprise model.
And what Robert was just touching on, and also check with your state ethics attorney from your state to make sure you follow, because there are ethical rules that must be followed when you act as both the attorney and the financial advisor, wealth manager. And the rules, most states have specific opinions and rules. Here's how to do it. Here are the disclosures. And we are chapter and verse on these are the disclosures up front, so clients understand I'm wearing two hats. So we're very clear on that. Now, I wanted to backtrack a little bit back to where you talked about, okay, what are the finances like, which is somewhat, certainly Robert addressed leaving money on the table, which of course people are doing when they're just in the legal business. In the legal business itself, we have collected financial information on our members on a voluntary basis for over 20 years now. We have benchmarks for what you should be bringing in, as well as what you should be spending. And you could name any category of expense that you've got, and we know what the benchmark is. We also have the benchmark for your compensation, both your salary and your profitability of the firm. And so we've collected it, we've analyzed it, and every year members get to be in what we call the financial database review. And we get to go through the numbers. Different members volunteer to actually show their numbers to other members and show what they're making, the gross revenue, the categories of revenue that come in, as well as all the expenses. And then they like to talk about how much money they make. So we're really in this incredible position because of our longevity of having tremendous tools to help lawyers, whether they're new lawyers, which most who come to us aren't brand new lawyers. They're usually in the practice 5 years, maybe 10 years. Some of them are transitioning out of different areas. And we're able to educate them on the legal side through our legal department, plus also give them the systems on the business side so they can get up and running pretty quickly.
Excellent. All right, as we wrap things up, guys, Sandy, indulge me a second, because I grew up in the New York City area, and you rarely saw law firms advertising on television. The only one that I remember is Jacoby Myers. So if you're from like the Northeast or something, you probably grew up watching, Brady Bunch reruns and seeing Jacoby Myers ads in between. And then I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina, where literally like every ad between car commercials is lawyers. And now if you live in a big major metropolitan area, you see lawyers advertising on television. Does this work for attorneys? Like, I don't even know if you guys touch upon this in the enterprise model, but out of my just blind curiosity, like, what is up with all these lawyer ads on television?
What's interesting about that is you got to believe that it's working. Otherwise, everybody wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And, you mentioned Jacoby and Myers. Of course, we know that name. The other one that jumped to mind was the other big one is Morgan and Morgan. I mean, they're everywhere. And so it works. What we believe in is not that type of advertising. We believe in marketing, direct marketing to consumers. And then we have different systems where we're big on doing workshops. We're big on doing webinars, because what we teach is that we want educated prospects. We want educated people coming into our law firms. And the way to do that is through some teaching, whether it's a workshop, a webinar, and that way we give out all the information someone needs in order to make an informed decision. And again, this is another touch, another way of operating where you're providing value before you're asking for anything. And again, the system tells and shows and teaches the attorneys, here's how to do it step by step.
Nice. All right, Robert, wrapping things up here. First step for folks is buy the enterprise law firm model, obviously. What do you want attorneys to do as the second step once they've read the book?
Well, we want them to call us, because we're presenting what the system is to do this enterprise thing, but you're going to need coaching. You're going to need all of the details around it. So we would like for them to call the Academy or go to the Academy's website, aaepa.com, and talk to somebody, and we'll find out. We have an exclusive membership in the sense that everyone has a territory that they are exclusive to. So we have open territories, we have closed territories. So to call and find out whether the territory that you're in is actually open would be the first step. And then we can talk to you about how to get and belong to the academy.
Nice. Sandy, anything else to add on that?
No, I think Robert hit the nail on the head. And, to leave any attorneys who are watching this, certainly pick up the book, read the book, go to one of the websites, talk to us. But then also when you're alone thinking about your future, your future's created in some sense by things you don't take action on. And so is this moment for any attorney who's at a crossroads or contemplating what they want their future to look like? We're just here to help. So keep that in mind, take a little time, and if there's anything that we can do, that's the way to get a hold of us.
Name of the book is The Enterprise Law Firm Model, the blueprint for attorneys to build wealth, freedom, and a legacy. They are Robert Armstrong and Sanford Fisch. Robert, thanks again for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
And Sandy, great talking to you. Appreciate all the information.
It was great meeting you, and Joe, you did a great job. Thanks.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Robert, Sandy, or any of our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.